What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be talking about 10 drivers who need to step it up in the 2026 NASCAR season. These are 10 drivers I feel like have a lot of pressure on themselves going into 2026. These are 10 of the big names who I feel like need to step it up in the upcoming season. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. The first driver I think needs to step it up in 2026 is Austin Cindric. Of all the drivers of the NASCAR Cup Series going into this year, I feel like Austin Cindric has a lot more pressure than anybody else to really step up his game. He did not have an amazing season in 2025. Yes, he did pick up a win at Talladega Superspeedway early in the year. He did show some consistent speed early in the year, but as the year progressed and went on, the field started pulling away from him, and Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney both outran him throughout 2025. And there were a lot of times, even throughout the year, Josh Berry in the satellite car would outrun Austin throughout the 2025 year. And what's kind of frustrating for him is that this is going to be his fifth year in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026. He needs to get that gap a lot more closer to Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. He should not be running in the middle of the pack around 20th on a week-by-week basis. He can't just be running there and have some good runs at short tracks and the ovals. We all know him to be a solid road course racer, right? Since 2022, he's not been a major factor on the road courses at all. That's an area I think he also needs to step it up in 2026 and show a lot more improvement on those tracks going into next year. I want to see if he can close that gap going into 2026 because he doesn't have that safety net anymore of Tim Cindric being there, and I think that his chance of staying around long term are going to be dwindling if he doesn't take that next step and get a lot better going into 26. He needs to be, instead of kind of running around the 20th range, I like to see him closer to Ryan Blaney and Joe Logano next year. We'll see if that can happen in the 2026 NASCAR Cup season. I think Cindric is a talented driver. I mean, he's won an O'Reilly Auto Parts Championship in 2020, and he does have 3 NASCAR Cup Series wins to his credit, but he hasn't been a major factor winning a lot of races as of late, and I think that things need to change on that front. Hope he can run better on tracks that are not just super speedways and take that next big step forward going into the 2026 year. The second driver I think needs to step it up in the NASCAR Series in 2026 is Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez did not have a good season in 2025. He only had, I believe, 1 or 2 top 5s throughout the year, could be in a runner-up finish at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I think he only had maybe 5 or 6 top 10s across the board in 2025. And unfortunately, at the end of the year, he lost his ride at Trackhouse Racing to Connor Zolch, who will drive the 88 car in 2026. Daniel Suarez is going to be joining Spire Motorsports in 2026, an organization and team that did show a ton of improvement in 2025. But the last 2 drivers who driven the 7 car, that being Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley, have unfortunately struggled in the 7 car the last couple years. He is going to be in a lot of pressure in this car because Daniel Suarez, in my opinion, I think he's a talented race car driver. But Daniel Suarez is really not, since coming to Cup, hasn't really been a driver that consistently run up front on a week-by-week basis. And he's coming in to his 10th full-time season in the NASCAR Cup Series and is 34 years old. If he wants to stay in the 7 car long-term, he's going to have to perform very well on every type of track. There are going to be a lot of big-name free agents that could be on the market at the conclusion of 2026. Guys like Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Alex Bowman, if he somehow gets let go from Hendrick Motorsports, Bubba Wallace, you name it. Many big-name drivers who I feel like would be more better than Suarez at this point in that car. I think it's going to be a big year for Suarez to really run well. He does have sponsorship, which will help him long-term, but if he can have a really good season in Cup, it could put himself in a good position on the silly season front going forward. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him for Daniel Suarez to step up and run really well. We'll see if he can do that in the NASCAR Cup Series in the 2026 year. The third driver who I think needs to step it up in 2026 is Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs will be coming into his 4th full-time season in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026. It has now been 4 years since he won the O'Reilly Auto Parts Championship in 2022. And I think a lot of us were already expecting by this point that he would have a win in the NASCAR Cup Series. He still does not have a win at this point in the Cup Series, so I will say he's been close to winning a few races. But he should be running a little better in that 54 car than he has been running. The previous driver of that car, which was previously the number 18 car, Kyle Busch, won multiple championships in 2015 and 2019. Also, his 3 teammates, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, and Denny Hamlin, I believe combined to win 13 of the 36 races last year, and those guys made the round of 8, and 2 of those guys made it to the championship 4 and nearly won the title. Ty Gibbs didn't even make the playoffs in 2025, though he did show improvement in the second half. We need to see Ty Gibbs take that next big step. He needs to start going out there and picking up wins and picking up victories. I think that's going to be ultimately one of the big goals for Gibbs, is to finally get that first career win. I think he's got the talent to do it, and he's still a young enough driver. I think there's a ton of potential right there, but I want to see Ty Gibbs really take that next big step, really go to that next big level and show what he's capable of. Because again, I think Ty Gibbs is a talented guy, but he hasn't won in NASCAR's top divisions in like 3 or 4 years. I think the 23 was the last time he won in any series, I'm pretty sure. So it's been a bit since he's gone to victory lane. We'll see if things can happen for Ty Gibbs, but I think it's going to be a big year to see if Ty Gibbs can step it up in the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. The fourth driver needs to step it up in 2026 is Riley Herbst. Going into 2025, the expectations were not that high for Riley Herbst when it was announced he'd be going full-time Cup racing. He had a couple wins in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in 2024, in the 24 season, picking up 2 wins that year in the number 98. But I think people thought in 2025 that he might get maybe a couple top 10s, maybe get a ton of top 15s, and be around 30th or 25th in the points. Riley Herbst didn't even score a single top 10 finish and only had 1 top 15 finish throughout the year. He had the worst best finish also of any driver that ran full-time in a year. Even Cody Ware had a better best finish of the season than Riley Herbst had, and only had 1 top 15. Corey Hyman ran part-time, by the way, had more top 15 finishes than Riley Herbst did in 2025. He's got a lot of pressure for him. He really needs to step it up and run a lot better. We need to see him starting to contend closer to Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick. Bubba Wallace had a career year in Cup. Won the Brickyard 400. Had the most top 5s and top 10s he's ever had in a season. And also had led the most laps ever led in a year. Tyler Reddick, while he still was down in performance in 2024, Tyler Reddick still contended for wins throughout the season. There needs to be improvement from Riley Herbst going into this year. Otherwise, his future long-term could be in jeopardy with the 2311 racing team and organization. He just did not look good this year. And personally, I think Corey Hyman should already be in that 35 car at this point. But I digress at the moment. But I think that Herbst really needs to improve and show some improvement going into next year, because it was a really bad season and a really bad year for Riley Herbst in the Cup Series in 2026. The fifth driver I think needs to step it up in 2026 is Sheldon Creed. Now, Sheldon Creed currently holds a distinction for having the most runner-up finishes without scoring a win in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. There is no denying that Sheldon Creed is a very talented race car driver. I mean, he won the Truck Series Championship 5 years ago, or 6 years ago in 2020. But he's still looking for that first win in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. His teammate Sam Mayer, meanwhile, won a race in 2025 and almost made it to the Championship 4. He also is driving the same car that Cole Custer drove in 2023 and 2024. Cole Custer combined had 5 wins across those seasons. 2 wins in 2023 and 3 wins in 2020. 3 wins in 23 and 2 wins in 24 made the Championship 4, had a shot to win the title. I want to see Sheldon Creed get that first win. He needs to start winning some races in O'Reilly, because if he wants to ever have a shot at going Cup Series racing, because he's almost 30 at this point, he's really going to have to step it up to the plate and start running a lot better, because his opportunities, I think, are dwindling a little bit on that front, and I think if he can get a win, that would be huge. He's come close to winning, so I think he's got the talent, but I want to see him start winning races in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026, I think O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, in 26. We'll see if things can happen for him on that front, but we'll see if he can step it up in that 00 car in the 2026 NASCAR season. We'll see if he can have a little bit of better performance. The sixth driver who I think needs to step it up in 2026 is Alex Bowman. Now, Alex Bowman, in my opinion, he's probably one of the top free agents currently at the moment that has not signed a contract past the 2026 year. And Alex Bowman, I think we all can agree, is a very talented race car driver. When you look at 4 drivers at organization and teams, and you look at the history of Hendrick Motorsports, that they've had 4 full-time cars going back to 2002, I think you can argue that Alex Bowman is the best 4th driver that Hendrick Motorsports has had. But I think the last couple years, we can also all admit that Alex Bowman hasn't run as well as Chase Elliott at times, hasn't run as well as Kyle Larson, who's won 2 championships in the last 5 years, and William Byron, who also had a shot to win the championship the last 3 consecutive years. And he also has only won 1 race since 2022. I want to see Bowman really take that next big step and get better in that 48 to where he can be a little closer to Larson, Byron, and Elliott, which I think he'll have the potential to do that. I think there was a lot of momentum at the end of the year for Alex Bowman. That 48 car did show some speed, and there were times in 2025 where you could argue Bowman was actually outrunning Chase Elliott at times. But I think the big step for Bowman is to try to take that next big step, try to run a little bit better than he did in 2025. We'll see if he can do that and get some wins. I think he will win in 2026, and I think that'll be enough for him to stay, but I think that's the only thing he needs to do is just run a little better and contend for maybe a few wins in 2026. The 7th driver who I think needs to step it up in 2026 is William Sawalich. William Sawalich was expected back in the number 18 car in 2025. Going into the 25 season, expectations for me were not that high. I'll be real and honest. I thought he got rushed up to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series this past year, and I think we all can agree he did. He struggled and didn't even really have that many good forms. He only had 3 top 10 finishes, I believe, in the first half of the season. But in the second half of the year, things started clicking for William Sawalich. His performance did get a lot better. He had a couple runner-up finishes. He had a runner-up at Gateway, had a runner-up finish at a couple other tracks throughout the year. He started getting a little bit better throughout the second half of the year. I think the goal going into 2026 is continue to show that improvement. It's to know you deserve to be in that seat. There is a guy moving up, in my opinion, Gio Ruggiero, for instance, who I think is better than William Sawalich, who I think is more qualified to drive that car than William Sawalich currently at the moment. And if William Sawalich doesn't run well, even though he does have sponsorship with him, I can see William Sawalich having some questions around him long term. He needs to contend for a top 15 of the points and maybe even a top 10 at this point. He needs to be running around where his teammates Taylor Gray and Brandon Jones run, not just in half the season, but the whole entire season as a whole. I think he does have the capability to do that, and I think there's potential for him to do that in 2026. We'll see if the Joe Gibbs Racing team can show that improvement and see if he can do a little better in the car next year. We'll see who his crew chief is going into next year, but I do think that things hopefully can be better for Sawalich, because I think he does need to step it up a little bit more in 2026 in the O'Reilly Series. The 8th driver I think needs to step it up in 2026 is Corey Day. Corey Day is going to be full-time in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in the number 17 car for Hendrick Motorsports. First time Hendrick is going to have a single driver behind the wheel of the car they've had, I think, since like 2004 or 2005. Corey Day is a talented race car driver, but I think we all can agree that 2025, it was a very slow start for Corey Day. He struggled in the first half of the year. He didn't show consistent pace and speed, and he didn't have a lot of really good runs. But near the end of the year, he did get better. He had a ton of top 15 finishes, including a runner finish in the Truck Series race at IRP, and had a couple top 10 finishes near the end of the season, had a top 10 at Gateway, and scored a top 5 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I think the goal for Corey Day is to run better than that. Consistently run top 10 and top 5 and win races. That is going to be one of the strongest goals I think Corey Day is going to have in the 2026 year, is to win races. He wants to win, in my opinion, because a lot of people think down the road that he is going to be the future replacement for Kyle Larson, depending on when Larson does eventually, in fact, retire. Because Larson, we don't know how long he'll stay in the Cup Series at this point, though he doesn't want to retire at the moment. And plus, he can put himself in position, he runs well enough to be in contention for the 40A car long term. I think things need to be better for Corey Day. I think he's talented enough to do it. I think he's got the potential, but I think it's going to be a big year for Corey Day, in my opinion, to step it up in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in the Hendrick Motorsports camp in 2026. The 9th driver I think needs to step it up in 2026 is Sammy Smith. Sammy Smith is going to be back in the number 8 car for 2026. This is going to be the 3rd straight year that Sammy Smith has driven the number 8 car. Sammy Smith has 3 career O'Reilly Auto Parts wins. One coming off a disqualification at Rockingham, one coming at Super Speedway, and another one coming in 2023 at Phoenix. But Sammy Smith was, in my opinion, the weakest link of the junior motorsports drivers in 2025. Justin Allgaier, Carson Quaffle, and Connor Zoll all outperformed Sammy Smith throughout the year. And I think he's really going to have to run a lot better in 2026 than he did in 25. The only big reason why he's in that car in the first place is because he has sponsorship and funding with him. Otherwise, I'm not sure he'd be in that car in the first place. He'd probably have Raj Crew full-time in the A currently at the moment. I think Sammy is a talented guy, but let's be real. He's there because of funding. He's not even looked as a top prospect anymore, even though he was a few years back when he drove for Joe Gibbs Racing. He needs to run a little better. He needs to win more than just one race a year. I think he's got to have multiple wins coming into 2026. Because other than that, because if he doesn't really have that kind of year, it could be a struggle long term. We'll see what happens for Sammy Smith, but I think he's going to have to definitely step it up and maybe run a little better than he did, because I think that it was a struggle for him at times this year, and he didn't look as strong as Allgaier and Connor Zilisch did, and didn't look as good as Quaffle did throughout the year. We'll see if he can have that step up and run a little better in the 2026 O'Reilly season. We'll see if he can do better with Junior Motorsports. And the 10th and final main driver I want to talk about is Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson is going to be back in the 4-car in 2026. 2025, I think we all thought Noah would run a little better than he did. I thought because he had some good runs with Stuart Haas Racing in 2024. He ran pretty well in the number 10 car and had some race-winning speed at points throughout the 24 season. You compare that to 2025. Noah Gragson did not look good. Now, there was a lot of bad luck with Noah Gragson in 2025. There is no denying that. But he also just had a lot of races where that car was just slow. He didn't run very well. And Todd Gillen and Zane Smith both outran him throughout the year. Zane Smith had a couple top 10s and even a couple top 5s and nearly won the Bristol Night Race throughout the year. Noah Gragson, outside of a great run at Homestead and a great run at Dover at points, didn't really show a lot of great speed throughout the year. I think for Gragson to stay in this 4-car after 26, he's really going to have to run a lot better. I think he's certainly in the hot seat, and it could be his long-term future set. I think he's going to have to run better going into 2026. The front row in general has to run a little better, in my opinion. But I think, unlike Noah, I think Zane and Todd have a little more potential right now than Noah does. And I think that Noah's going to be in a little pressure to run a little better. I think he certainly could also be on the hot seat in 2026 in the NASCAR Cup Series with front row. So, those are the 10 main drivers who I think need to step it up in 2026. I do want to mention a few honorable mentions, beginning with Shane Van Gisbergen, mainly on ovals. I don't think you have to worry about on road courses for him in 2026. I think he's going to be really good on the road course and win a lot of races. I think the big thing is step up in ovals. He did show improvement throughout 2025 on the ovals, but I want to see him start running top 5 and top 10, and I think there's a chance he can do that, but that's going to be the goal, is step it up on ovals. Next, both Gray brothers, beginning with Taylor Gray. He got a win in the O'Reilly Series in 2025 and was really good. I want to see him turn into that championship contender that I think he's got potential. If he really came out of his shell at times and had race-winning speed at points, I want to see him get some wins in 2026. Tanner Gray, on the other hand, he needs to run a little better. He's been in the Truck Series now for almost a decade at this point, and Tanner Gray, outside of a couple strong runs like at Pocono and a few other runs throughout the year, he's not looked like a race-winning threat. I mean, he struggled even winning ARCA races with Joe Gibbs Racing. I think he needs to run a little better and show some more stuff in 2026. And finally, Josh Berry. Josh Berry, I want to see him run a little more consistent than he did in 25. He did get a win at Vegas, and he did have a couple good runs and nearly won in New Hampshire, but I do want to see him run a little better than he did in 25. I want to see him start taking that 21 car, kind of run around where Ryan Blaney did in 2017, and also how Matt DiBenedetto did in 21. If he can do that, I think he's going to be one to watch out for long-term in the sport. So, those are the main 10 drivers who I think you need to watch out for in NASCAR in 2026. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Notifications on so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go more of that and comment your thoughts on today's video. Which drivers do you think need to step it up in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to be doing a NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple days. We got a lot of lawsuit stuff to talk about on multiple different lawsuits that could be happening, including a new Kyle Busch and Samantha Busch lawsuit that's been happening as of recently. Also talk about some silly scene stuff around Brent Cruz, and some other teams could be announcing some stuff in the next couple days. Then later today, if there's any other major news breaks, discuss the live on the channel. Thursday, we're going to be doing the Q&A for Thanksgiving, and then on Friday, I'll probably do a video on 10 drivers who are on the hot seat potentially, or do a team preview on RCR Junior or a team like Joe Gibbs Race, something like that. And then over the weekend, we're going to have special videos dropping, including an early look at the Daytona 500 Intros for 2026. And then Monday, we should have a NASCAR news video dropping. We got content coming on people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bo Loss, Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Frankie Muniz, Carl Edwards, Cletus Zafar, Dodge Ram, Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, Will Brown, Robbie Gordon, Brian Feeney, Cam Waters, Connors Illustrated Junior Motorsports, Daniel Suarez, all the good stuff. Corey Hamm talk about all the stuff on the channel in the coming days and coming weeks as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody, and add Red Bull to that as well.